obviously this is a new section to the application, the pandemic impact statement. And we're going to be going through this new portion of the application that was added in this year with a number of templates and examples, again, so you can help build a strong application for the program. So the key question that we are going to answer throughout this particular section is, how do I write an effective pandemic impact statement? One thing that we wanted to draw your attention to before we get started is that we do have some very limited spots still available for additional support throughout this application process, especially with all of the different changes that have taken place to consider the impact of the pandemic within your application. So some options that are available outside of this bootcamp are also the Essentials package. This is where you receive one-to-one essay support coaching through email support. And then there are also a few spaces available for the Premium package, giving you access to all of the video bootcamps, full end-to-end admission support, either through phone calls or via email, with a personal admissions coach, much like myself. All right, so today we're going to talk about the pandemic impact criteria, the application format, and then as well provide you with some examples that are also available in the links right below this video. So the pandemic impact criteria. As I mentioned, this is a newer component of the application, so we have taken this directly from the 2020 AEO and HBA application. So for each of your top 2 activity essays, so only your top 2 activity essays, you're also going to include a separate paragraph in the pandemic impact field, outlining how the global pandemic has impacted your leadership experience and what you learned as a result. So this is an additional 250 words that they have added in for you to be able to describe how the pandemic has impacted your leadership or your activity, which in my personal opinion, I think is super kind of the Ivey Admissions Office. They're still giving you the 500 words to talk about your activity, but then also giving you this extra and additional space to be able to explain if there were any changes due to the pandemic and the activity or activities that you have listed. Now, it is also important to note here that if there was no impact, so to your leadership experience due to the pandemic, then you're also going to want to state that. So in that section, it won't be sent to a reference to review, but you're going to want to not just leave it blank. You're going to want to say that there was no impact, and I would also recommend saying why. So an example of something that may be no impact would be an event or an activity that took place completely outside of the pandemic and wasn't going to be recreated or redone the following year, right? So for example, if one of your biggest leadership or extracurricular activities took place in, let's say, 2018, was not being repeated in 2019, you're not going to want to make up something that the pandemic impacted it if there was no impact. So if there was no impact, say that. However, if there was an impact or it impeded your opportunity to be involved in events in the future, then you're going to want to use this section to your advantage. And our examples will go through that in just a few moments. So this is, again, something that will be sent to your reference. So please make sure that it's accurate and a maximum 250 words. So use this also to your advantage as well. So as I mentioned, we have created a template as well as an example that you have access to using the links just below here. Please ensure that you do make a copy of the template when you are working on it on your own. Again, this template is available to a number of students participating in this bootcamp, so please make a copy of the template and then save it to your own Google Doc or Word document, however you want to use it. There's also examples available for you. Again, just as an opportunity to see an example, we do not want to see any of these used in an actual application. You are going to need to craft and create your own 250-word pandemic impact statement based on your specific activity. All right, so we're actually going to jump right into the different examples that we have created for you. So quickly, I'm just going to show you the template that's available. So you'll notice the breakdown of this particular template is very similar to how we have broken down the essay examples, right? So looking at your overall content, So adding some necessary background information if needed. Like if you've already included it in your activity essay, you may not need to provide some context, but if there's a bit more explanation that you can provide that, again, very specific to the COVID-19 pandemic, then use about 50 or so words to do that there. Your catalyst, so the impact and the action. So when COVID hit, like what happened, right? Like how did this impact your activity? How did this impact your plans? Almost every human on the planet has been impacted in some way by COVID-19, the plans, the schedules, things that they had organized, right? So being able to provide some specific details about what happened and how that impacted your particular leadership opportunity. And again, tying it into those core leadership traits that we've talked about a number of times, right? So your leadership, your teamwork, your commitment, and your achievement. And then also, as mentioned in the actual description that Ivey's provided for the pandemic impact, they want to see what is your outcome? What is your learning from this? So like, what did you learn as a leader from this experience, right? Give them an opportunity to learn about what you've learned and discovered over this time, right? Like, for example, the quarantine was a really big time of self-discovery for a lot of people, myself included. And it really made me look at and re-examine the things that I was doing in my life and what was important. So maybe that's something that happened to you and your family. Maybe that's something that happened through your particular leadership experience. Maybe you learned something about yourself, your creativity, your ability to adapt and change that had never been tested in such a way. So that's a great opportunity to really showcase what you have learned from the pandemic and what was the key outcome from that learning. So that is the example, the template there. So we're going to move on to the examples. So these pandemic examples are directly linked to the examples that we created for the top 2 activities. So we wanted to make it nice and coherent for everyone, that the top 2 activity examples that we provide in a previous video, these pandemic impact statements relate directly to those examples. So if you want to read them together all at once, then it may make sense the type of information that you would include in the core bulk of your 500-word essay versus what you would include in this 250-word statement. So the first experience I'm going to talk about is the one where the student who started their own entrepreneurial venture. So I won't read through the specific directions provided in the template, but I'm just going to go through and read all of the various sections of this particular template as it relates to this individual student. All right. So before COVID-19, my business thrived because I was able to work one-on-one with prospective and existing clients to articulate the value of an effective computer security program to them directly. And then when the pandemic happened, it made it really difficult to interact with customers. My business stalled, and many said that they didn't see a need for my services, especially when there was an economic decline was threatening their businesses. I realized that I had to pivot my sales strategy to find new sources of income, so I reached out to small businesses who were shifting their focus to online sales. I articulated the importance of computer security for them as they stored data in the cloud, added software, as well as worked remotely with their clients. I also created 2 tiers of package pricing, which offered them a bit more flexibility, and I also added a small monthly subscription fee to ensure the gradual growth of the business. The biggest lesson I learned from this experience is adaptability. Seeing the changes that my father faced in his construction business, such as adhering to new regulations and adjusting his business to adhere to a cyclical market, I saw firsthand and how important it is to be agile and respond to business trends and roadblocks as they arise. Adapting to the challenges that the pandemic posed meant that I had to change my business model and target customer base. My ability to respond to small businesses' needs, of modifying their online services and turning in their required comprehensive computer security not only solidified my confidence in my abilities as a leader, but it also helped me increase my customer base by 20%. COVID has shown me how to find creative ways to expand my services and respond to the demands of my industry, and now I know that I can face challenges that may arise in the future. So you can see there a great opportunity to tie in what happened at the beginning, some of the challenges, like some of the immediate reactions that took place, the learnings, shifting, adaptability, being able to be agile was mentioned in here, and then the key learnings for the student and their entrepreneurial business. All right. The second one was creating a new club or event, and in this particular example, they were speaking to the creation of a club or event with the Alzheimer's Society. So based on the success of the first Alzheimer's awareness event, I plan to make this event annual with the hopes of gaining more traction and raising more funds. The first event was so successful because the attendees got to interact with those who suffer from this disease as well as their families. Before the pandemic, I was already working on the second fundraiser. I booked a large meeting space and had approximately 50 confirmed attendees and 6 guest speakers. However, COVID made large events impossible and long-term care centers were placed in lockdown. Needless to say, this fundraiser was the last thing on anyone's mind. Rather than canceling entirely, I shifted my focus online. I sent out emails to all of the attendees and speakers, assuring them that we would still proceed as planned and that together we would overcome this obstacle. The event happened via Zoom conference, and I found an online platform that could support the silent auction portion. Through this experience, it taught me the importance of having courage to overcome obstacles. Although I initially thought I would have to cancel this event, my decision to let go of my fear and find a new way to host it led to further success in raising awareness and funds for Alzheimer's. Not only was it a great success with over 70 attendees and $1,000 raised, but it also helped members of my community connect and overcome their feelings of isolation during the pandemic. This experience showed me that even when challenges like a global pandemic or a difficult disease happen to us, great success can happen when we press and find new ways to achieve our goals. So another very strong example of the student was impacted in this way because they were planning on running the event the same way they had. And again, had to shift and adapt into how they could still run the event in a new way. You'll also notice that the students still continued to note and use the quantities, right? So the number of attendees that participated, the amount of money that was raised, right? Still being able to quantify that impact using talking about the different tools that they used and talking about some of the different learnings, right? Like, so not only was this particular event helpful in raising awareness about Alzheimer's, right? But it was also a great opportunity to connect and bring people together during a time where physically we aren't able to do so. All right. Last example we're going to share here for the pandemic impact statements is the third example that we provided to you, which was the student tutoring services. So COVID-19 has changed the way we think about learning. With the focus being put to online learning, my tutoring business has changed. At first, I thought I would have to stop completely, but I decided to make it an opportunity to challenge myself. Instead of meeting in person, I shifted all of my services online, meeting for 2 hours per week with each student through Zoom. Sometimes it has been difficult to explain my points properly because I can't go through a lesson as I would in person. So for example, I was discussing the Battle of Stalingrad with one of my students for her Modern European History course. And usually I would make a diagram of the battle so she could visualize it, but because we couldn't meet in person, I wasn't able to do this. So instead, I created slides of the different stages of the battle so that I could use the Notepad app, and she could see exactly what happened. Rather than getting frustrated, I've learned to adapt and communicate my ideas better, making me a stronger leader. COVID-19 has taught me that brainstorming and patience go a long way. In a way, I am grateful that this pandemic happened because it's shown me how strong my leadership and teaching skills are and has made me more confident in my abilities overall. Yeah, so again, another example of shifting and adapting and what has been learned from this experience, right? Again, because this is a global experience, like everyone has been impacted in some way, shape, or form by the pandemic. It's how you overcome and how you are able to continue to move forward as a leader that Ivey is really going to be looking for here, right? So allowing the pandemic to be an excuse as to why you don't have strong leadership is not going to be something that will be accepted or tolerated, right? This is why they're giving you this impact statement section so that you can show, like, when faced with adversity, how do you rise to the challenge, right? How do you use your teamwork, your leadership, your initiative, and your achievement to be able to adapt and change in an unexpected situation just like this? All right, we'll head back to our presentation. So again, these examples are available to you. I strongly recommend, again, make a copy of the template and start to work either with your coach or on your own to develop some of the points that you really want to highlight that you've learned throughout the pandemic related to your top 2 activities. And as always, if you ever need some additional support from someone who you can trust and who's done research in this incredibly challenging year, we're here to help. So please feel free to reach out to us here at Admissions Ally if there's additional information or resources you require, or if you are still interested in participating in the Essential or the Premium package. Best of luck with your application, and we'll see you in the next video.